Alright, here we are again, back in the office. Fearless Fantasy Forecast Show. I'm Cash, this is my partner and co-host Daley.
That's me.
We'll start the show off by giving credit where credit's due. Our opening intro music was none other than Chase Given, up-and-coming talent. And Chase has been making some songs for our show, so hopefully you'll continue to hear him as our intro from week to week. We'll get right into how we did last week against the spread. Daley went 5-1. I went 4-2. So I'm one game behind him, and we had a lot of the common picks. We really only had one big game, and it was a Super Crew game. Or no, they both picked.
I think it was Feeling Lucky and whoever that was. I don't remember right off the top of my head.
All right. Well, the new segment we're going to start is Dead Right, Dead Wrong. We'll go ahead and own up to what we got wrong and take credit for some of the stuff we got right. One thing I was right about is Chris Ivory.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And again, I like him this week too, but we'll get into that a little later. We both were right about Tom Brady and Julio, Lacey, the Seahawks, and Jeremy Hill. And Daley had the Dolphins pegged.
Of course.
Some things we were wrong about. I'm going to bite the bullet on Matt Forte as he torched me for about 144 yards. Doug Martin's a guy I thought would have a better showing, and he didn't.
And I was wrong, dead wrong about AP. Like, I couldn't have been more wrong. But the whole Vikings team was terrible. So, and I was also wrong about Matt Ryan being a top 3 quarterback. He missed 2 really easy throws that could have put him right up there in the discussion, though. So
Kiko Alonso made a big play on him.
He made a nice play.
The top point scorers for each position last week, we'll get into that now, and I'll let Daley run through the quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers.
All right. The top 3 quarterbacks were Tom Brady with 36 points, 288 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota had 4 touchdowns and 32 points. He went 13 of 16. Carson Palmer went 19 of 32 and for 3 touchdowns and 31 points. The top 3 running backs were out of nowhere, seemingly. Carlos Hyde had 26 for 168 and 2 touchdowns. He destroyed the Vikings. Matt Forte, alleged frowny face candidate last week, had 24 for 141 and a touchdown. And Chris Ivory, who he was all over Chris Ivory. He's been on him since we started doing mock drafts. 20 for 91 and 2 touchdowns. Top 3 wide receivers, Julio, obviously. The world was on Julio. 9 for 141 and 2. DeAndre Hopkins caught a touchdown pass from both the terrible quarterbacks, Hoyer and Mallett, but still had 13 targets, 9 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Antonio Brown, a little garbage time miracle. Steelers called a timeout with 5 seconds left to get him his touchdown, but that put him in the top 3. So
I think the bookies were probably happy about that also.
They were favored by 7, and by 7.5. The Patriots were, and that got them within 7. It pushed on some sites, but
the top 3 tight ends, none other than Gronk. I think he'll be here all year. 3 TDs, hell of a first performance. Brady's fired up, and they're going to be scoring. Tyler Eifert was he was number 2 man, and Austin Seferian-Jenkins number 3. Top 3 kickers, Brandon McManus, Josh Brown, and Matt Bryant. These guys are in good spots, and, kickers are a dime a dozen, but I think these guys will be around the top all year. Top 3 defenses were the Seahawks, Panthers, and Rams.
I would like to point out that I said the Seahawks or the Dolphins were going to be the top scoring defense, and the Seahawks were.
All right, well, that's enough about last week. Let's get into this week coming. Our first matchup is the Cash Money Millionaires against AA, and myself and Gray, we're a 20-point underdog in this game, and we're gonna open up this game by maybe giving the manager for AA, the general manager Andrew Watkins, a phone call and see what he thinks about his team thus far, and let him make some comments on the upcoming matchup against Cash Money Millionaires.
Hey, man. What's up?
What's up, dude?
Oh, not much. Just want to talk to you a little bit about your team this week and how you feeling.
Hang on. Let me get my...
This is very well organized.
Y'all there?
Yeah, we're here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm in.
All right.
So, I think we're looking, but honestly, I think we're looking solid every week. But the fourth quarter is what it is. I think we got a solid team. I think we're going to be up there pretty much every week with the high scores in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the only really weak point on your team this week I see is Torrey Smith, but I also really don't see anybody that you can put in for him unless you want to run both Colston and Cooks out there. Although against Tampa Bay, that might not be a terrible idea.
That's true. That's true. I mean, Kelsey, I think Kelsey's going to be the one that puts us over this year. We won last week with getting 0 points out of our kicker, which, you know, sometimes the kicker is a high scorer in our league, as we all know. But I think we're set up nice, man. If we can get any production out of our RB2, which I'm still on the fence a little bit about. All my preseason readings that Murray from Oakland was going to be sort of a breakout guy, but I'm not really sure how long that's going to take and if it's going to happen this year. The good line is looking really suspect out there.
Yeah, well, going back to the kicker thing, I mean, Vinatieri is not going to get you 0 again. I mean, they didn't even kick an extra point last week because they got down so much and they just started going for 2. And then Murray, he had 18 touches last week, so he's going to get. It looks like he's going to get to work, but they're just so bad. I mean, they're probably going to be horrible again. So I don't really know.
There's been a lot of shootouts too, so I'm interested to see how much he's utilized in the pass game because I mean, it was 32-0 or whatever zip well into the third quarter, and I thought third or fourth quarter the other day, and I'm just like, man, he's not going to get many points with these kind of games, but hopefully they can get some shootouts and he can catch the balls for us.
Yeah. What about, I know we were at the bar the other day and, you know, it kind of got a little hazy there in the 4 o'clock games, but Keenan Allen had a day. He had 17 targets. And that's by far the league. It was targeted 6 more times than Julio was. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, and it's a tricky. The thing about Keenan Allen is Philip Rivers is going to throw a shit ton, and he's obviously got favorite targets. And Keenan Allen is his favorite target by far this year, in my opinion. And I really think that just the East Coast games, or he's going to Cincinnati this week. It's a 1 o'clock game, San Diego to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's defense is outstanding, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can not duplicate last week, but at least show some wide receiver 1 type capabilities. Because if he shows wide receiver 1 type capabilities, I mean, we've got Brandon Cook, we've got Keenan Allen, Kelsey, and we've got a nice little lineup, I think.
Yeah. And I'll touch on 2 more things before I let you go. Matt Ryan's got another amazing matchup. Tony Romo tore the Giants up last week for 356, and he's right back in another great matchup. And your defense, the Packers defense, I don't know if you're aware or not, but last year Marshawn Lynch got him for, I think it's 40. He had 45 carries in the 2 games for like 267 yards and 3 touchdowns. He obliterates the Packers, and they did not look good against Forte. So I don't really know. I don't really think you can expect much out of them, but honestly, I don't think you should need it.
Yeah, the defense, I'm a little bit different in my fantasy opinions on defense. I really try to play the defenses that I think are going to get the most turnovers or opportunity for some type of points other than
traditional defense statistics.
Yeah. Is not one that turns the ball over a lot, but it's one of the things. I got the Raiders defense just as a sort of a heart thing that I went with early in the year. So we're going to see what happens, and really, I don't think much this is.
Yeah.
Maybe winning with defense and winning, but I really think that, like you said, with Matt Ryan's got the NFC South, obviously his division for 6 games. He's got the AFC South, that's 4 games, and then the NFC East.
Whoa.
And this guy's got 14 games against defenses that love to give up loads of points historically. So I really think he's going to be a top 2 or 3 fantasy quarterback. It's just a matter of making sure that we keep the lineups right and that we don't get kind of backdoored a little bit with whoever we play week to week.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on with us, and good luck this week.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Y'all enjoy.
All right.
Thank you.
Later, man.
All right, bye.
All right, there you have his opinion on it.
And he went second level. They're talking about Matt Ryan's whole season schedule. He put a lot of thought into that one. I actually had forgotten that Matt Ryan's schedule was that, soft, you would say, due to last year's record. But, we'll see what happens.
And his team does have some great matchups this week. I gave Matt Ryan and Eddie Lacy the dollar signs as the top money plays. But then you look at Cooks and Keenan Allen and Kelsey, and they're all check marks because they're solid plays too, and you got to have them in your lineup. I do have a question mark beside Latavius Murray because we don't know what we're going to get still. The Raiders are going to be losing most weeks. And, this Ravens team's, the defense actually looked a little better this past week. I got a question mark beside Torrey Smith. Obviously, when you have Torrey Smith in your lineup, you're going to get a question mark. But if you look on the other side of our team, we're really in shambles also. Without Arian and Le'Veon Bell, our team is really, really, really struggling right now. We're going in the wrong direction. Our money plays this week are Bradford and Lamar Miller, in my opinion. Bradford's going to throw the ball 50-plus times a game. It's pretty obvious. And Lamar Miller's at Jacksonville this week. I think he'll bounce back and try to get in the end zone. All my receivers are cash money millionaire receivers are pretty much a question mark at this point. Obviously, I have a strong special teams and kicker with McManus and the Seahawks. And we're hoping David Johnson might can steal us a touchdown with Andre Ellington out this week. As far as my pick, I'm going to take the 20 points because 20 points is a lot. And I really think Double A is a much better team at this point, and they're going to beat us, but 20 points is a little too much. And then in my little game here with Daley, I'm going to take the 20 points and myself to win.
I think I've already talked about Double A's team enough. I really like their matchups and everything. I'll talk about the other team a little bit. Bradford, the numbers look good from last week, but it took 55 throws to get there. Can they really? Is he really going to throw it 55 times a week? But the Cowboys, and the Cowboys look good against the Giants. So I don't think Bradford will have 355 again. But if he can flip his touchdown interception ratio, then he'll probably be fine. McFadden troubles me. He only had 7 touches last week, and Dunbar looked a lot better than he did, honestly. But they don't really have any other options right now with Bell suspended and Foster injured. And also T.Y. Hilton's day-to-day. So
if he plays, he'll be in there.
Obviously, if he plays, he'll be in the lineup. But
right.
I think we feels like we do this with Lamar Miller. Like every time somebody talks about Lamar Miller, it's like he sure did look good, but they didn't get him any touches. He was a premium matchup last week against the Redskins. He looked good in spurts. They don't give him enough touches. And Percy Harvin, he caught all 5 of his targets and had a touchdown, and he had a big play. I just don't know.
He was a waiver wire.
I really don't know what to expect from him from week to week. And Aguilar, he played 59 snaps, but you wouldn't know it if you weren't looking for him because he only had 2 targets. So it's going to be a rough week. It's going to be a rough go here till Foster and Bell get back for this team. And I'll take Double A this week, -20.
To cover, okay.
I'll take them to cover, yeah.
All right, moving on to the next game. It's our game of the week here on the Fantasy Forecast Show. It matches up Dingbats against 4th and Inches. Both teams coming off a win last week, and Dingbats is favored by 4 points this week. I picked Dingbats to cover the points. I like both teams. Big Ben, Jeremy Hill, Carlos Hyde are definitely going to be money plays for the Dingbats. Again, it's his young wide receivers, Sammy Watkins and Amari Cooper, are going to be question marks. He's got Dwayne Allen in the starting lineup right now. That's not a play I really feel strong about. And C.J. Anderson, I think this guy's going to be a bust this year. Him and you said they split carries last week.
Both had 12 carries each.
Matt Brown, always solid. He's a good play. On the other side of things, you got Cam Newton. He's having some team issues. Melvin Gordon, question mark there because they do have Woodhead also, and it's going to be a thorn in their side on deciding who to play from week to week or how they're going to match that up. And until San Diego knows, then it's hard for them to kind of project their team. Then we got Julio with a great matchup against the Giants. I got $4 signs beside him, and it's going to stay that way It's going to stay that way until something happens to change it, man. He's going to have to burn me before I stop believing in him. I think Calvin will steal a touchdown this week at Minnesota. Same kickers here. The defense, Daley's got a great defensive matchup with the Dolphins at Jacksonville. Brandon Marshall got him one last week, right?
Yeah, he did get him one.
I don't think he'll do it 2 weeks in a row, but look for Emmanuel Sanders to grab one this week. And CJ Spiller, he's my first frowny face of the week. Well, actually, I gave Darren McFadden a frowny face in the other game. Daley told me he's going to play Spiller, and I'm not high on Spiller. I think Mike Ingram, Mark Ingram. He had a great week last week, 100 yards receiving. So I just don't see what Spiller brings to the table for them. So I'm going to go to Dingbats -4. What do you got on it?
We'll start off with my team. And we'll start off with Spiller, too, since you just said that. What Spiller brings is that. Like, no one expected Mark Ingram to have 9 targets and 100 yards receiving because Mark Ingram typically doesn't do that. That's what they paid CJ Spiller to come do. And Tampa Bay looked, oh my God, they were bad last week. They were just terrible. They let Bishop Sankey go wild. Bishop Sankey ran for 74 yards, caught another touchdown pass. He scored as many touchdowns yesterday as he did all last year. I mean, not yesterday, last week, as he did all last year. So Spiller's going to see some targets, and he could get loose on Tampa Bay, I think. And Cam was 2 plays away from having a huge day. They had the offensive pass interference against Greg Olsen, which I don't think it was. And then Ted Ginn Jr. dropped a touchdown pass, standing by himself on the 3-yard line, alone, with his back to the end zone. It was horrible. And they're playing Houston, who let Travis Kelce get wild. So I'm expecting Olsen and Cam to have a hookup. And the whole Woodhead, Melvin Gordon thing, I'm kind of leaning towards Woodhead right now because he got all the red zone work. And they don't really trust Melvin Gordon to block. So obviously Julio, he's playing. There's no doubt about that. Brandon Marshall, he's going to get all the targets. And they're playing against Indianapolis, so it's going to be a higher-paced game. Emmanuel Sanders against Kansas City. I do want to talk about Kansas City for a second. They look good, and they beat Houston. But they let Ryan Mallett and Brian Hoyer throw for 334 yards. Peyton Manning is going to throw the ball. He's going to be better than he was last week. Emmanuel Sanders is he's going to be fine. And on the other side, yeah, Dwayne Allen's always touchdown or bust. Sammy Watkins was only targeted 3 times, which was odd. I don't expect him.
Percy was really getting into his production.
I don't expect him to get 0 points again all year, but I really don't know what to expect from Tyrod Taylor. Carlos Hyde's got another pretty good matchup against Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm not expecting 170 and 2 touchdowns again, but he'll have something decent. Jeremy Hill has a decent matchup against San Diego. Big Ben's a must start. C.J. Anderson's got a bulky ankle, and he's split carries with Ronnie Hill, and I honestly couldn't believe it because
I think this game is a matchup of the best 3 running backs in the league for one team against the best 4 wide receivers on one team.
But I mean, of course, that's assuming that C.J. Anderson does something, and you didn't like C.J. Anderson.
I don't like C.J., but he's a first round pick, I think, in most leagues.
But anyway, I'll take my team.
You're gonna pick yourself +4 points,
yeah.
Okay. Moving on to game number 3, Rumham against the Drew Crew. I believe both of these teams are undefeated also.
They are. They're both on
coming off a win. The Rumham Crew's getting 3 points this week. And look at their matchups. I got a lot of check marks here. Actually, 5 to be exact. They have a lot of safe plays. I'm going to call Forte a safe play for now. He has already burned me once. I'm not going to let him burn me twice. Russell Wilson, I think he's a...
Russell Westbrook would be a pretty good play, too.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be good against Green Bay. But Russell Wilson, I think he'll be a solid play. I got him scoring 22 points. Demaryius Thomas, like you said about KC. Peyton's going to be throwing the ball. Alfred looked really good last week. I think he'll look good again this week against St. Louis. They are a little better defense than the Dolphins, I think, on paper. But that game's going to just matter on Kirk Cousins and how they do move the ball. On the other side, the Drew Crew's got the dollar sign beside Palmer. He's a strong play again this week. AP, I'm sticking calling him the bust. Safe play with Ingram, safe play with Edelman. Frowny face for Roddy and Fitzgerald again. Roddy kind of got me last week. I gave him the frowny face and he went for 84 yards. Looked pretty unstoppable at some points. I think the Giants are going to have their hands full with Julio. And I think Roddy's going to just hurt Roddy's production in the long run. Julio's going to be unstoppable and getting all the catches. So I'll take Rumham in this game, plus the 3.
All right, well, first I want to talk about Carson Palmer. He just keeps rolling into these great matchups, apparently. And I feel like at worst, he's going to be a top 8 to 10 quarterback, and that's at worst. He's probably going to light Chicago up. AP.
Carson's got a lot of targets.
Yeah,
so
Carson, he's not bad. But, I mean, he fell into another great one. AP, I really think this is a bounce-back week. I don't think he's going to be the top scoring running back this week, but he's going to find the end zone at least once, and he's going to look like AP again. Mark Ingram, the question is how much Spiller going to cut into his production, especially the catching the ball part of it. Edelman, he's going to keep catching balls. That's just what he does. He's a PPR monster. I got Larry Fitzgerald penciled in here for a hookup with Carson Palmer. They got that hookup, so I think they should be able to get one. I don't really know what to do about Randall Cobb. He only had 5 targets last week.
I think he's a little banged up, too.
They're going to need him against Seattle, though. They've got to have him this week. And Roddy White, Julio gets all the attention, and so he should be around, just hanging around in the middle. Bailey, always good because Dallas is always in high-scoring games. The Rams defense, I can't stress this enough. If the defense you have is playing Washington, start them. Because Kirk Cousins is going to give you the ball. And the Redskins special teams are horrible. They gave up another punt return last week to Jarvis Landry. He went untouched. And the Rams got people back there that can return punts. And they got the best defensive line in the league.
Play this week also.
And they got the best defensive line in the league. So if sacks are definitely possible if Kirk Cousins decides he wants to look to more than the first read this week, which he didn't last week. So not so much the sacks, more so interceptions or punt returns. And on the other side, Rumham's got 2 people I really like a lot. Actually, 3. Demaryius Thomas. If Julio Jones all of a sudden quit breathing today, I would have Darius Thomas as my top scoring receiver for the week. I mean, if D. Hopkins and Ryan Mallett and them can get 98 and 2 touchdowns on Kansas City, Thomas is better than him. And Jason Witten. Jason Witten is probably going to lead the Cowboys in targets this week. I don't know about catches and I don't know about yards, but Tony Romo looks to him, and especially without Dez, he's going to look at him a lot. And
I think it's a rumor that those 2 are butt buddies.
Yeah, they're definitely close together. And other people, this dude Forte had the 29 touches last week. That's probably not going to continue, but he'll still get a lot of work. And Arizona allowed Mark Ingram, who never catches balls really, to catch 8 balls last week. Forte caught 100 and some last year. So he's definitely going to get a lot of work in the receiving game. I don't know about the rushing game, but he'll definitely get his touches and his points. And what else? They have Brady on the bench, and this is the thing I don't know about. They're starting Russell Wilson, I guess, because the Buffalo defense is a little scary, but Russell Wilson wasn't all that good against the Packers last year, honestly. And Lynch destroyed. I think I've been over this at least twice already, and I'll probably go over it twice more. But Lynch killed Green Bay last year. I don't really expect them to throw a lot. Well, they shouldn't anyway, but whatever. If the lineups stay like they currently are constructed, I'll take the Drew Crew minus the 3.
All right, moving on to our next game, feeling lucky against the Bears. This is a pretty even matchup according to CBS. They've got the game set as a pick'em. Pretty even matchup according to CBS, but in my eyes, I really don't see it. I see Drew Brees with a great matchup against Tampa Bay. I see Abdullah against a team that let Hyde get him for about $1.70. D'Angelo looked good week 1. Terrence Williams is going to get a lot of increased targets now that Dez is out. Brandon Coleman caught a touchdown week 1, and now he's up against a very soft Tampa Bay. Jimmy Graham and Gronk. Of course, they're always going to be great plays. Gronk, I got $4 signs beside him. Drew Brees and Abdullah, I both gave dollar signs, and also Terrence Williams. On paper, I think this game's, in my opinion, feeling lucky just dominates. On the other side, you got the Bears against the Falcons. It's kind of meh. Frank Gore and LeGarrette Blount, they're both kind of meh plays this week. I really like Antonio Brown every week, and he's getting the $4 signs. Alshon will probably steal a touchdown. Landry's got a good matchup, and Steve Smith I gave the frowny face after his week 1 performance. I think time's just catching up with him right now, and he's probably going to play himself out of the Bears lineup before too long here. They got some guys on the bench they could plug in for him. For this game, I think it's pretty easy for me. I'm taking Feeling Lucky to roll. I think CBS missed this one. If I was a betting man, I'd have all my money on this game for sure.
Yeah, well, first talking about the Bears lineup, Eli, he was so bad. Like, he was just atrocious last week.
Atlanta looked pretty, they looked pretty solid in times against the Eagles.
They looked good in the first half, but then, the pace just wears the defense down eventually. So, that was to be expected, though. The Eagles are always going to get yards. And I don't think the Falcons' defense is all that good anyway. I think Eli's going to have a better game. He can't have less than 200 yards on 36 attempts again. That's terrible. There's no way that'll happen again. So, I'm not saying he's going to throw 4 touchdowns or anything, but I mean, standard 18, maybe 20-point game for Eli. LeGarrette Blount, I don't like this matchup.
I think I'd wait a week before I throw him in there. You never know with the Patriots. And they don't even run the ball anyway, really.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like, we watched the game, and I don't remember them running all too much. But they run more with him in there, and he gets a lot of goal line work. So, but I just don't like them against. I have that written down, TD or bust. And Frank Gore, I hate this matchup. Just absolutely hate it.
The Colts had a tough start, man. It's a
tough
schedule.
They'll
make up for it, once they get into that AFC South. But before that,
I like Jarvis Landry. In any PPR league, Jarvis Landry is a guy that you do not mind running out there, and he's a punt returner too.
He's a big factor.
And he's Brian Tannehill's favorite target. So there's that. Antonio Brown's always going to get the targets. He just put him in there and let him go. Doesn't matter who he's playing. And he's actually picked up the Saints defense against Tampa Bay this weekend. It seems like a good team to pick on after last week. Jameis, he didn't look real good, but it was his first game, and I don't know if that's just a matchup play strictly. I don't know what his other defense is. He actually had an illegal roster today, so we had to get that fixed, but I don't know who he picked up. On the other side, Feeling Lucky's got the number 1 quarterback matchup of the week. Drew Brees against Tampa. Mariota lit up Tampa last week, and I feel confident in saying that Drew Brees is slightly better than Marcus Mariota. D'Angelo Williams had 125 last week, out of nowhere, seemingly. And up against San Francisco, I'm not expecting that again, but, if he can get half of that in a touchdown, it's the same point, so... Feeling Lucky also has Dez, but he's out 48. But luckily for him, he's got Terrence Williams.
It's not often you have a wide receiver handcuff.
I don't see too many wide receiver handcuffs, but he's got it. And Terrence Williams falls right into a pretty good matchup against the Eagles, where he's going to see some targets.
And he's going to be on the field a lot.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely be they'll run some plays. He's got Abdullah against Minnesota. He said,
play.
Yeah, and Brandon Coleman, he's paired him up with Breeze. And then, of course, he's got Graham and Gronk. I mean,
Gronk's
going to be Gronk. So, and Jimmy Graham, I think all his value this week is a short, red zone touchdown. I can't imagine the Seahawks throwing. I mean, a lot, because the way I've talked about Marshawn already. But, yeah, I don't see this game as being a pick-em at all. I don't see where they get some of the projections from, because I don't have Gore or Blunt doing anything. really. And I mean, I'm not super low on Steve Smith this week because Oakland, they let Tyler Eifert and those type of folks get loose. So Steve Smith can find the end zone this week, depending on what Flacco shows up. You know how that goes too. I'll pick feeling lucky.
All right, we're in agreement there. Moving on to our final two matchups this week. Super Cruise -1 against the Trailer Park Boys. This is another tight matchup. Two good teams. I got Stafford as a safe play with A.J. Green, John Brown, and Cole Beasley for the Super Crew. With Dez out, I think Beasley probably gets increased targets. Justin Forsett still getting a question mark. Not a very impressive week last week for him. Still in love with Chris Ivory, and like Daley's hinted around Marshawn Lynch, we're both pretty bullish on him this week against Green Bay. It's a good matchup for Super Crew pretty much all the way down. If he can get anything out of Forsett, I think he's going to have a good chance to win. On the other side, Trailer Park Boys, they get some check marks for Aaron Rodgers and Jamal Charles. They're going to be great plays pretty much no matter who they're playing against. And, this Seattle defense is really good, but, so is Aaron Rodgers. This week, I think Yeldon, Alfred looked really good against Miami at times, and I think the Jacksonville crowd's going to try to get Yeldon a touchdown.
All 11 of them.
James Jones, I got a question mark. Can he do it 2 weeks in a row? Last week he looked amazing. Got 2 big touchdowns. That was a big pickup for the Trailer Park Boys. Charles Johnson, question mark. He was kind of irrelevant on Monday Night Football. Leonard Hankerson, I'm giving the frowny face. I can't believe this guy's, in a starting lineup in fantasy at this point right now. He's going to have to burn me. And also another guy this week I'm off of is Greg Olsen. I think Daley's going to be on him, but until he shows me otherwise, I just don't think Cam is a tight end type of quarterback. I think a lot of times Cam's scrambling around looking downfield for receivers, and it's not the tight end as much. But for this week, I'm going to pick the Super Crew -1. I think it'll be much bigger, especially if they can get some production out of Forsett. Trailer Park Boys have a good team, but until some of these questions are answered with his receiving core, it's going to be tough for me to pick them from week to week. We'll see what Daley's got on this game.
As far as the Trailer Park Boys go, I looked at their lineup today. I was putting their starting lineup in. I didn't even bother to put Hankerson in because I just put Mike Evans in there anyway. There's no way that Leonard Hankerson is going to play over Mike Evans if Mike Evans plays.
If he plays. Now that's a question mark with a hamstring, though.
And New Orleans got lit up last week, so Evans is he's in a good spot if he plays, like I said. And on their bench, they've got Sankey and Eifert. So, even if they don't,
this was a tough game to project because we know this is not, we hope this is not guaranteed to be their starting lineup. I think they can make some plays. We're not going to come here and try to coach their team for them, but we don't think this will be the final lineup for this game, for the Trailer Park Boys at least.
Yeah, well, Rodgers, the thing, I don't really know. Rodgers is obviously great. But I don't know what to make of the Seattle-St. Louis game last week. Nick Foles threw for 297, and most of it was over the middle to the tight ends. The wide receivers only had, I think it was 85 of the 297 yards. It was really weird. So Rodgers he could have a great game. He could just have an average game. I don't think he's gonna have a horrible game, but I really kind of caught in between those two. Charles Johnson, he was nowhere to be found. 3 targets, 2 catches, 27 yards. But he's in a matchup this week. Detroit gave up the most passing yards in the league last week. Phillip Rivers threw for 405. So it's a pretty good-looking spot to bounce back. James Jones he just took 2 touchdowns on 4 receptions. Him and Aaron Rodgers got a thing going. They know where James Jones knows what he expects and knows where to be in the right spot. Greg Olsen, I got to be high on him. I have to stay on him because Travis Kelce killed Houston last week. And Olsen's at least that good. And maybe they're on the same level for sure. and they're playing the Panthers defense also. The Trailer Park Boys are. The question is Luke Kuechly playing? And honestly, it might not matter because they're playing against Ryan Mallett and the other dude, Hoyer. So, on to the other team, I'm not gonna say this often, probably this year, but I really like Justin Forsett against Oakland. Gio Bernard had a pretty good game in the reserve role last week, catching passes out of the backfield. He even ran some, and that's what Forsett does. And if Oakland's just going to let the running backs catch a bunch of balls and run all over the field, then he's going to have a pretty good day. And Chris Ivory is against the Colts' run defense, and I mean, Shady didn't really get off, but I mean, Carlos Williams got off. The Boobie Dixon scored a touchdown, so you know anybody it seems like can run on them. And I'll talk about it one more time, just one more though. Marshawn Lynch, he's the number 1 running back on the board. Killed Green Bay last year. Last week Forte got him for 24 and 141. It's probably the best matchup in my mind of the week, and that's probably the deciding factor in me picking the Super Crew. I do want to touch on one more thing. He has Cole Beasley in the starting lineup right now over Golden Tate. I don't know if that's going to be his final decision or not. And Cash hates Cole Beasley this week for some reason. I do not hate him, but I think he's going to fill into like a Julian Edelman type role with Dallas because, I mean, he can't throw the ball to Jason Witten and Terrence Williams every time, and there's going to be plenty of times to throw it to him. And he should get 8 to 10 targets, and it just depends on what happens and where they come on the field. It could be.
It's going to be a high-scoring game. That's what all signs are pointing to. I think in that one.
But I'll take a Super Crew -1.
All right, and our final matchup: Team Drunk -6 against Show Me Your TDs. Show Me Your TDs is a low-scoring team last week, but I think he's in a situation this week where a lot like the Eagles-Falcons game, everybody projected. He has a lot of players in this Dallas-Philadelphia game, and I think it's going to be, I mean, you see how they want to play, and I think it's going to be a good game from a fantasy standpoint. He's got Peyton against Kansas City. I think Peyton will have a good game against a pretty decent defense, bounce back from his bad week. Murray against Dallas. Murray didn't get the yards everybody was looking for, but from a fantasy standpoint, he got 2 touchdowns, and I think most owners would be satisfied with a guy getting 2 touchdowns over all the yards every week. Tevin Coleman looked really good. He had some flashes. He's the rookie that's impressed me the most until we see Todd Gurley step on the field. Joseph Randle, another good matchup in that Dallas-Philly game. I think Randle will be able to run on the Eagles. Odell Beckham, I think he'll bounce back this week. Jordan Matthews, you saw he's going to be a top target for Bradford, and he's going to get a lot of catches and a lot of shorter stuff than what we're used to seeing with him, but he showed he could go over the middle and make some plays. This Devin Funchess, I'm not sure if this guy's sticking the starting lineup or not. Not really high on Panther wide receivers at this point. Justin Tucker's a formidable kicker, and the Eagles special teams always a candidate to get you a touchdown. I don't think they're going to stop anyone or, probably not get a defensive touchdown unless they block a punt or something along those lines, and they're known for that type of thing. But on the other side, you got Andrew Luck, a questionable matchup again for him, playing against the Jets, but it is in Indy. Rashad Jennings and the Falcons. Rashad Jennings isn't going to be impressive from week to week unless something happens, to get him going. Right now, he's not looking great. McCoy's playing against the Patriots. It's a safe play. DeAndre Hopkins, safe play. Jeremy Macklin's probably a pretty decent play, even though the Broncos' defense is, pretty solid. Anquan Bolden's a question mark for Team Drunk. Doug Martin, possible bounce back game here, and if he burns me again, I won't be picking for him the rest of the year. For this one though, I really like the Eagles-Dallas matchup, and Show Me Your TD's got a lot of players in there, so I'm going to take him in the 6 points.
I really think the Doug Martin thing last week had more to do with how the game went down, because Tampa Bay got way down early, and they couldn't really do anything to get Doug Martin the ball, and they just started throwing it a lot, and Jameis kept giving him the ball. And I like Doug Martin again this week because Andre Ellington had a pretty good game last week. That David Johnson the
He
Cardinals
had
backup
50
running back
touchdown.
touched the ball one time and scored. So if Doug Martin's back to the way he was in 2012, this is definitely a game for him to shine in. And like you said, Andrew Luck's in another medium to bad matchup. Revis and Cromartie are out there. They're out there patrolling, and it's dangerous. Rashad Jennings, last week the Falcons got burned on with running backs catching the ball. And Rashad Jennings, that's one of his strong suits. Also Shane Vereen, so it could be a big day for stuff like that. Shady had 20 touches. Didn't really get going last week, but Buffalo ran the ball well, and the Patriots gave up 125 to D'Angelo Williams, so it has potential to be a huge day for Shady. D-Hop looked like, he looked way better than I thought he was going to look.
Hard knocks. I knew it.
He looked like a number one. He had Ryan Mallett and Brian Hoyer throwing the ball, and you put up numbers like that, then you're pretty good. And the Panthers don't have anybody who can cover him, so he's potential to get in the end zone again. Macklin, he's going to get all the targets, or most of the targets for Kansas City. But Denver's defense looked really good. I don't know how much of it was how terrible the Ravens looked and if they're really good or not, but I guess we'll find out Thursday. Bolden's just what Bolden is. He's a guy. He's not really fantasy relevant. He's just okay. He's a really good football player for your real life team, but he's not really fantasy relevant anymore. He's going to get like 4 or 5 targets. He'll catch a few. If he gets in the end zone, that's a bonus. But Pittsburgh's a pretty soft matchup, so he's in a better spot than normal. The Cardinals defense is playing the Bears, and Lord knows Jay Cutler's dying to give him the ball, and I'm sure he will. On the other side, Peyton, he played so terrible last week. But this week, Peyton Manning will throw for 300 yards.
He's calling it now.
Will throw for 300 yards, I promise. He's been, the last 8 games, he's been bad to medium in fantasy. He's going to break out this week. If Ryan Mallett and Brian Hoyer can throw for 334, Peyton Manning's going to throw for 334 yards. Nate Washington had 105 yards receiving against the Chiefs. So they're going to throw the ball. It has to happen. Joseph Randall, he's in a good spot against Philly. DeMarco, the 2 touchdowns really saved him. He only had 13 touches, and he's getting paid $40-some million. I assume the workload's going to increase and steady out before the year's over with, but those 2 short touchdowns really saved a disastrous debut. Tevin Coleman, solid. He looked good. Odell Beckham, I look for him to get back on it this week against Falcons defense.
What a haircut that guy took, by the way.
Fantastic haircut. Probably the best in the league. Funchess, I don't know.
Is he even a fantasy player at this point?
The thing is, he almost has to be because, you're just assuming that he's going to get targets because he's big and they don't have anybody else to throw to other than Olsen.
What about Jericho Cotchery?
He's 34 years old.
I think I'd play him before I played Devin Funchess.
I don't think. You're basically just prospecting. You're touchdown mining with Devin Funchess. He's like Dwayne Allen. You're just hoping for a touchdown. And Jordan Matthews, he gets a bunch of targets. He's gonna a lot of short 5 to 15 yard throws. He got robbed of a touchdown last week too. That would have made his stats a lot better. Let me see. He'd have had 10, 16. 18 and a half points if they would have counted that touchdown. So I'll take show me your TDs +6 this week.
All right. Late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, the free agent wire was pretty active. A lot of teams making some moves. What we're going to do each week is give the top remaining tight end at each position, or the top remaining free agent at each position. The top remaining free agent right now at quarterback is Alex Smith. He scored 28 last week.
Expect him to remain there.
Marcel Reese, 14.75 last week.
He'll probably stay there too.
Travis Benjamin got a catch last week for a touchdown and 14.75. Darren Fells from the Cardinals. This is one guy that could get picked up possibly if he can continue to get the targets for them. Scored 15 last week. The kicker for New Orleans Zach Cocker.
The Cardinals picked up that Gresham guy that used to play for Cincinnati, so he hadn't played yet, but him and Fales are going to be fighting.
I think Cocker will eventually get picked up, and I know you probably find this comical, the Redskins, the top defense, but they did look good, honestly, and they had some flashes.
They're not really a fantasy defense, though. But, I mean, they're a solid. The front seven for the Redskins look good, but the secondary is still in question, and they don't have any return capability at all. Like, I can't remember the last time the Redskins had a kick return touchdown, and I pull for the Redskins. I watch the Redskins every week. I honestly cannot remember the last time they scored on special teams.
Big congrats goes out to Rumham. He was the top scoring team last week, 113. Obviously, the scores are up in our league now that we've added the increased yardage points. The low scoring team was Show Me Your TDs. I like them to bounce back this week, though. I think
there's no way the
team's full of Eagles, so obviously I like them. And we're going to close it out. We're going to give our top player at each position for this week. For me, at quarterback, it's Drew Brees. I love his matchup. At running back, Chris Avery. Wide receiver, Julio, and he'll probably stay here throughout the year as long as he stays healthy. And the same thing for Gronk at tight end. For kicker this week, I'm going to go with Mason Crosby. I think Seattle's going to try to keep him out of the end zone, and he'll get some opportunities to get some kicks in. The Dolphins' defense stays my top defense this week against Jacksonville. That's just a juicy matchup for them, and they'll possibly get a special teams or a defensive touchdown.
At a quarterback, I'll take Drew Brees as well, although I did show Peyton some love earlier. But I think Drew Brees is going to have a slightly better day. Running back, it's not even close. It's Marshawn Lynch. Wide receiver, it's not close there either. It's going to be Julio. Julio's basically written in week 1 through 16.
I think the only person that can challenge them week to week is Antonio Brown, and without Bell there, their offense isn't completely at full steam yet, so Julio's going to be tough to fend off.
Speaking of people that are basically pinned in for the top of their position every week, Gronk get tight end. I can't imagine picking someone else. Kicker, I actually picked Adam Vinatieri. He kicked the ball one time last week and missed from 52, but against the Jets, I think they're going to have some drives stall out, and he very rarely misses. He's been a great kicker for a very long time, so I think he's going to have a pretty big week. And the Dolphins are playing the Jaguars, so obviously it's the Dolphins. That's pretty much plug and play when somebody's playing the Jaguars.
All right, well, that's going to bring us to a close here. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll be back again next week in some kind of creative form, as I'll be in Florida and Daley will be in North Carolina, but we'll get it figured out, and we'll have you guys a show next week for sure. Good luck to everybody this week, and that's all.